Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The F-35 Lightning II is often called the most advanced fighter jet in the world, but what most people don't realize is that one of its biggest combat advantages doesn't come from Lockheed Martin's factory in Texas. It comes from a quiet building in Israel. Today we're going to break down exactly how Israeli software engineers and pilots completely rewrote the rules of the F-35 and turned a good aircraft into a battlefield dominator that no adversary can match. When Israel became the first foreign customer to receive the F-35 in 2016, they didn't just accept the American version. They demanded something the Pentagon never allowed any other partner: full source code access and the right to write their own software on top of the jet's core systems. This was written into the contract and it gave Israel something unique: the F-35I Adir, a customized variant that looks almost identical on the outside but thinks completely differently in combat. The first and biggest change was the integration of full Israeli avionics and weapons into the F-35's brain. The standard F-35 can only use American-approved weapons that have been painfully integrated over years. Israel said no. Their engineers connected the jet directly to the Israeli command and control network, something called the Tzayad system, allowing every F-35I to share real-time data with ground forces, drones, naval ships, and even older Israeli jets like the F-16I Sufa. In American F-35s, this level of national integration is heavily restricted for security reasons. In the Adir, it's seamless. But the real game-changer is something called command fusion. Israeli pilots flying the Adir don't see the same cockpit displays as American or British pilots. The Israelis completely rewrote the human-machine interface. Where the standard F-35 presents information in layers that the pilot has to dig through, the Adir uses Israeli algorithms to fuse all sensor data, radar, infrared, electronic warfare, data links, into a single god's-eye picture that updates instantly. Targets are automatically prioritized, threats are color-coded by danger level, and the jet even suggests which weapon to fire and from which angle. Pilots say it feels like the airplane is thinking 2 steps ahead of them. Then there's the helmet. The F-35's famous $400,000 helmet is made by Elbit and Rafael in Israel for all F-35s worldwide, but only the Israeli version unlocks its full capability. In the Adir, the helmet symbology was rewritten from scratch. Israeli pilots can cue any weapon just by looking at a target, even if it's behind the aircraft or below the floor. The jet will automatically slew the sensor or roll the airplane to get a lock. This sounds small, but in dogfights or when evading missiles, those fractions of a second matter. Israel also added their own electronic warfare suite on top of the American one. The standard F-35 already has the best EW system ever put on a fighter, but Israel layered their own jammers and decoys that are tuned specifically for the threats they face: Russian-made S-300s, S-400s, and advanced Syrian and Iranian radars. During exercises, Israeli F-35s have routinely penetrated air defense networks that stop everyone else cold. In one famous red flag exercise, Israeli Adirs flew against dozens of aggressor aircraft and surface-to-air missiles and were never even detected, let alone shot down. Weapons integration is where things get really unfair. The F-35I can carry the full family of Israeli precision-guided munitions that no other F-35 variant can use: the Spice 1000 and 2000 glide bombs with pop-out wings, the Python 5 missile with its insane off-boresight capability and lock-after-launch mode, and the new ROKS long-range standoff weapon designed to kill hardened targets from outside air defense range. These weapons talk to the jet in native Hebrew code, meaning the Adir can do things like drop a spice bomb from 60 miles away, have it glide silently with wings extended, and then have another F-35I laze the target mid-flight for pinpoint accuracy, all without the launching jet ever turning on its radar. Perhaps the most terrifying addition is the ability to operate as a forward node in a swarm. Israel has connected the F-35I to their drone fleets, Harop loitering munitions, Heron TP, and even smaller tactical drones. An Adir can fly deep into enemy territory, find a hidden mobile SAM launcher, and assign a drone to loiter above it for hours until the perfect moment to strike. The F-35 never has to unmask itself again. American pilots are still years away from this level of manned-unmanned teaming. Israel also removed the logistical handcuffs. The American F-35 uses a system called Alice that phones home to Lockheed Martin every time you turn on the jet. Maintenance predictions, parts ordering, even mission data files go through U.S. servers. Israel said absolutely not. They built their own ground system that keeps all data inside Israel and allows maintenance crews to work twice as fast. An Israeli F-35 squadron can generate twice as many sorties per day as an American one in wartime conditions because they aren't waiting for permission from a server in Fort Worth. In combat over Syria and Lebanon, these changes have already been proven. Israeli F-35s have conducted hundreds of strikes, often penetrating the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. Russian air defense operators in Syria have repeatedly claimed to track F-35s, then admitted they lost them completely. In one documented case, 2 Adirs flew over Damascus, struck multiple targets, and returned home while Syrian radars were still trying to figure out what happened. The difference isn't just technology, it's philosophy. American F-35 doctrine is built around caution, stay stealthy, strike from far away, avoid risk. Israeli doctrine is built around winning fast and decisively. Their software reflects that. Where the U.S. jet warns the pilot, "You are being painted by radar, consider breaking off," the Israeli jet says, "Threat radar detected, here are your 3 best jamming waveforms and the optimal escape route, you still have 12 seconds to drop weapons if you want." Even the autopilot is different. Israeli pilots can hand over the jet to a mode called autonomous combat for short periods. The airplane will fly itself, manage sensors, update the battle space picture, and even fire weapons if pre-authorized while the pilot focuses entirely on tactics or talking to ground forces. No other air force trusts its pilots, or its software, that much. The result is an aircraft that is generations ahead in actual combat capability. On paper, every F-35 has the same radar and the same stealth coding. In reality, the F-35I Adir operates on a completely different level because Israel was allowed to write its own operating system for the most expensive weapon in history. Other countries are now begging for the same privileges. Australia, Singapore, Japan, everyone wants the Israel option. So far, the answer has been no. The US knows that once the code is truly open, the F-35 stops being an American aircraft and starts being whatever its operator wants it to be. Israel proved that first, and everyone else is still catching up. So next time you see footage of an F-35 doing something that seems impossible, striking targets through mountains, disappearing from the best radars in the world, or coordinating a strike with half a dozen different platforms at once, remember that a big part of that magic wasn't built in Texas or California. It was built by a small team of Israeli engineers who refused to accept someone else's limits on their survival. That's the real story of how Israeli code changed the F-35 forever. If you want to go deeper, drop a comment and let me know which part surprised you the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.